This is Atmaboda. Today is January 31st. It's New Year's Eve. We've got 2023 right around the corner, and fittingly, the title of today's video is on victimhood, which is the cancerous core of ideology. Okay? And I think that's very, very fitting that we use this word cancerous. Why do we say cancerous? Because cancerous is something that is the same. Pretty much all the ideologies, they all have this same cancerous core of victimhood. When you go to the root of all tyranny, it comes down to this concept of victimhood. Being a victim gives them the right to be a tyrant or to require others to conform because of this victimhood mentality. Now, we can trace this back, actually. We're going to do something different this time. We're going to use the web browser and use the internet to demonstrate, so that way I don't have to get too creative with my art skills. But let's look at some major ideologies of the past, okay? Communism. Let's look at images for communism. Why did communism rise up? What is the point of communism? That was these people feeling the victim of the rich, the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, the people who were the property owners, the capitalists. They were regarded as the enemy in communism and the original Marxism. And so the whole ideology developed from, okay, we the people, we workers unite, we are victims of this ruling class of people. We need to overthrow this ruling class of people, and people need to conform to what we are doing because this is the only right way to do things. Okay, let's go to another thing. Let's look at the Nazi ideology, okay, which is German Socialist Party, National Socialist Party. Okay, if you look at the Nazi ideology, believe it or not, this did not arise out of white supremacism. Nazism, the roots of the ideology, comes from being a victim to their idea of what? Of the Jews ruining everything. That's their whole ideology. It's basically where they're very anti-Semites, as you might say. They claim that because of Jews running industry, that's the reason why Germany has suffered, and they are the problem, and we just get rid of the Jews, then we're going to basically have heaven on earth, and the Germanic people are going to be united. So basically what we're seeing here is the root of both the Nazis and the communists is about victimhood. And let's look at some other popular ideologies today, all right? Feminism, all right? Feminism is built upon victimhood. It's on the basic summation that women are marginalized, oppressed group by men, and that men are trying to control them and manipulate them and pay them less. And the whole movement is predicated on the fact of being a victim. And if you don't see yourself as a victim, you're basically, how could you even be a feminist? It's like, that is like part and parcel to the whole feminist movement. Because if you don't see you're a victim, then there's no reason to even have feminism as a movement. If men and women are considered to be already equal, then it kind of defeats feminism, right? So feminism has to keep inventing new things to stay alive as an ideology. And so all ideologies, in order to stay alive, they have only one weapon, and that is victimhood, right? The same thing with LGBTQ. And I've got no problem against LGBTQ. I think adults should have the freedom to express themselves however they want to express themselves, all right? I'm not here to judge anybody morally on what is the best way. Of course, I want to protect children from, ideology, so that they can be free from ideology and be independent, and not be, part of a conformist ideology. Because I think, so anyway, but where did LGBT, the roots come from? It's that they were victimized. They consider themselves a victimized minority, right? A small marginalized group that's oppressed by society, and they basically were arguing that people were not hiring them because they're gay, that they are being denied marriage because they're gay. So it's all about denying the personal freedom of the individual is the ideal behind LGBT. But as an ideology, it's all about the victimhood mentality. Okay, it's because if you didn't have the victimhood mentality, there wouldn't be a reason to unite. It's like if you don't see yourself as a victim, why is there a reason to unite as a group politically? So my point here is this: you look at every single ideology, it starts out with victimhood. What's another one? Pro-life. Let's go to the other side of the aisle here, so we don't sound like we're partisan. Because my qualm is not with the left or the right. My qualm is with ideologies themselves, and you can have ideologies on the right as well. Okay, so what's the ideal with the pro-life movement? Well, they regard themselves as a victim because they're fighting for the unborn baby who is the victim in this case, and that the unborn baby has rights, and that we need to fight for the baby. So I guess the difference with the pro-life is that it's less about seeing yourself as a victim, but as seeing the baby as a victim, right? All right, what else? What's another ideology, a popular ideology? Well, I mean, there's pro-choice, right? So pro-choice, it's about seeing yourself as a victim because you're being denied rights over your own body in some states, or denying you that. Some people see it as a right to abort their own baby, and some people it doesn't matter if it's 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. Some people it's like that right should extend up until the moment of birth, the right to abort your baby. And so for some people it's like there's no difference between abortion and infanticide, whatever you call that word. But the point here is that it's no laughing matter with pro-choice or pro-life, because all lives are important. Okay, what's another one? Black Lives Matter. Okay, there's another ideology. So if you notice here, all the social justice ideologies, they all have to do with victimhood. Okay, so Black Lives Matter, what is that? It's like, okay, we are oppressed because we are black. Because we are black, the police are likely to kill us more on the streets. And that, the Black Lives Matter when it comes to police shootings. And so it's about seeing yourself as a victim because you're black, and then maybe it's branched off into other things. But originally it was all about victimhood with police shootings, in terms of especially racially motivated crimes, or quasi-racially motivated crimes, where it's especially if it's a white police officer killing a black man, that's like definitely the BLM will be on the streets about that, right? Less so if a black person kills another black person on the street, that pretty much gets swept under the rug. Nobody really talks about that. Because why do people not talk about that? Because it doesn't paint you as much as a victim, right? Whereas when you can point the finger to the man, or to society, or to an institution like the police, and say, okay, we're victimized by the police. And I'm not saying that there isn't truth to any of this. Of course, there's an element of truth with all of these ideologies. But the moment when you start seeing yourself as a victim, that is when it can become problematic. Because even if you truly are a victim, and let's go over to to the whiteboard here, because when you see yourself truly as a victim, here's my, when you see yourself as a victim and have the victimhood mentality, you see yourself as weak, okay? So you see yourself as weak. So what is the ideology? Is to protect the weak and the oppressed, okay? Well, if you are the weak and you're a member of the ideology, then guess what? Now it becomes about protecting yourself. So you're joining a group to protect yourself because you see yourself as weak. Now, those who are able to overcome serious problems in life and rise to the heights of higher success, one thing you'll find in common with those people is that they stop seeing themselves as a victim, right? So seeing yourself as a victim is a major handicap in your own personal success. You know, when you can start seeing yourself maybe as a survivor as opposed to a victim, that's got kind of a more positive spin on that. You can raise yourself up to at least survivor level, where it's like, okay, I refuse to see myself as a victim. I refuse to see myself as oppressed. I am a survivor. I can strive forward. I can be united. But however, with these groups, with ideology, without the victimhood mentality, they have nothing, okay? Nobody wants to join their ideology if they don't see them as victims. Their ideology becomes useless. It can only work if you see yourself as a victim. If you stop seeing yourself as a victim and saying, okay, well, maybe if I work hard, I can really get out from under this yoke of oppression. Maybe if I work hard and I can buy my own house and become financially independent and pay off my debts, maybe then I'm no longer oppressed, right? And I don't need to march on the streets with BLM. Maybe I don't need to, see myself as a feminist if I can get paid more than men. It's like if you are not having a problem being oppressed in the workplace because you're a female, and you're not seeing that you're getting paid less because you're a woman, it's like, and you are able to actually work hard and make money, it's like, why would you start looking down upon yourself because you're a woman? It's like, then you could start celebrating being a woman. And that's where there's a big difference between, feminism and let's see, let's spell this correctly. Feminism, and then there is femininity, okay? I love femininity. I'm not such a big fan of feminism. Why? Because they, in seeing you as a victim, they're saying, hey, the man's trying to oppress you by making you a housewife. What you really need to do is you should go out there into the workplace. You should put your career number one. You shouldn't let men oppress you. You should show them, that being a career woman is superior to being a housewife. And so there's a lot of pressure to break apart the family unit and to not value being a mother at home and taking care of the kids, or to being that nurturing aspect of the female nature, which we get with femininity. We have the nurturing, caring mother who is, taking care of the home, taking care of the kids, who's a pillar of the family unit. It's like there is not, in a family you have the man and you have the woman, and both roles are very important. As a kid growing up, you're not going to say, okay, who do you love more, your mother or your father? No, you're going to love your mother and you're going to love your father. Whereas feminism, it's trying to, it seems like from the outside observer looking in, that they're trying to break apart this family unit to de-glorify the concept of being a mother, of being a housewife, of being, content with that identity in the home, to try to break apart that as being a respectable role for a woman to have, no matter how natural it is for a woman. There are physical differences between men and women, and a lot of these ideologies, in their striving to make it look like you're a victim, they feel like they have to tear apart the traditional social institutions of the past to kind of justify their existence in reality. So, but what this all comes down to is this, okay? You cannot see yourself as a champion and also see yourself as a victim, okay? You have a choice in life, and this is very important. This is very, very important. You have a choice in life. You can see yourself as a victim, or you can see yourself as a champion. And you may say, okay, Atma, yes, but you don't understand. I've had this trial, I've had this trauma, I've had this abuse, and I am a victim. You don't know what's happened to me. I am a victim of life. This is who I am. It's like, yes, okay, yes, you can accept that you've had these circumstances where you've been victimized in the past. The problem comes is when that becomes your identity, okay? Because ultimately, you have the choice. You have the choice. Do you want to be a victim? Or do you want to be a champion? Okay? And then a defeatist might say, well, it's not a matter about what I am. It's about what already is. It's like how can you change reality? Reality is reality, dude. That's just how it is. I am a victim. This is just how reality is. Okay, well, if this is how reality is and you want to be stubborn about that and cling to that reality, well, guess what? That reality of victimhood can be yours, and you can own it and you can claim it. But ultimately, as long as you see yourself as a victim, you're creating an artificial ceiling upon your own success. You're creating a limit to what you can achieve as a leader in society, or what level of success is possible for you. Because as long as you see yourself as a victim, it's like having a governor in place on the speedometer that's keeping you below a certain speed limit. If you really want to break free, that means removing all of these restraints, all of these identities that are limiting you, and to try to see yourself as something more. So if you leave this victimhood mentality and try to aim to become a champion, you have to look at yourself, okay, what are the attributes of a champion, okay? What is a champion? Someone who quits? Is a champion someone who surrenders? Is a champion someone who, as soon as things start to become difficult, that they just give up? No, of course not. For a champion, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? The tougher things get, the tougher you get, okay? So if society becomes traumatic, you try to turn the tables on that trauma, and you try to instead come out as the champion, to be the winner, okay? To win. To not be a loser, not to lose, but to win. So the struggle for your reality in your mind, it starts with all those ideologies, okay? They're trying to get you to believe things about yourself, which can be true, and they can also not be true. But when it starts getting into victimhood, and when they start with the conformity and saying, oh no, you can't think this way, you can't say things like this, and if you feel being held back from being a champion, that's your first warning signal that something is going on. And I recommend for the championship mindset to see what other people are saying. It comes down to seeing yourself as a champion. Now, when you see yourself as a champion or having this warrior mentality, ideologies have very little appeal to you, right? Because ideologies, the main hook that they have is to reach the people who see themselves as victims already, or are at least downtrodden enough so that they're weakened enough so that they can be susceptible to this ideology coming into their life and acting like, okay, the savior of the situation. And so what's happening is you're creating a dependency between you as an individual and your ideology to such a degree that your individual identity becomes so less and less that your very identity and the ideology becomes almost like one and the same. So that if somebody attacks your ideology, you can feel personally threatened by that and have an emotional response, and not even logically understanding the reason for this emotional response, but just because like a part of your life has already been given away, part of your identity has already been given away to the ideology. So as a countermeasure to being susceptible to ideological influences is to see yourself as a champion, to try to see the strength that is within you, right? To have a resilience about you, a resilient core. Find a part of you that's within that can be unstoppable. And it's good to have, influencers that you identify with or can relate with to give you a sense of, how do I say, like you're not the only one out there, right? So that's part of what I'm aspiring to do, is to be a champion for others out there who need strength, that they can turn to me, but I'm not the only one. There's other people out there who I may not have a personal relationship with, but whom I admire from a distance, and we will get into some of those names. In fact, let's do that right now. Okay, we're just going to type in some influencers that I regard as being more independent from ideologies, that are pretty major influencers. So Russell Brand is one of them. Another one would be David Goggins. I'm not saying that these people are enlightened, but they have different ways I find them inspiring. Like, Russell Brand, he's a comedian, but he's able to broach some difficult topics on YouTube and get a message out there that isn't necessarily ideological and not a voice that, it's one of the voices that they're quasi trying to suppress. And so he's trying to branch out on like YouTube alternatives like Rumble. Same thing with David Goggins. David Goggins is an incredible athlete, but he didn't start out that way. He's got an amazing story, and there's some very fascinating interviews that you can find with people like Joe Rogan. In fact, Joe Rogan is also, a quasi-independent sort of a person. He's not, ideologically possessed. And so it's important to have voices for your news that are not ideologically possessed. That's the point here. So we got Joe Rogan. What's another one? And also I'm choosing specific names that are not conservative or like a right wing or left wing. It's like these are like moderate, in the middle. I could include some right wing names on here, but I'm not. I know that Andrew Tate, of course, he's all over the place. But he's not perfect either. None of these people are perfect. But one thing that they have in common is at least they don't have that victimhood mindset. And the same thing with I hope the allegations against Andrew Tate are false again, but if it turns out that the allegations are true, I want justice to be done in whatever, situation. My loyalty is to the truth. It's never to a particular person. Valuetainment is Patrick Bet-David. He's an incredible guy. I highly recommend, people check his channel out. He's definitely a voice of moderation, regardless of his political leanings, and the people he has on is from a wide spectrum of voices. It's not only on the right or on the left. The point here is to get away from this whole idea that people have to be either left-wing or right-wing. When you're coming from the champion mentality, it's about being a sovereign individual, right? That's ultimately what it's about, okay? Personal sovereignty, okay? Sovereignty, all right? Individual sovereignty. This is what being a champion's about. That means being a king of your own life, okay? Not seeing yourself as a subject, but seeing yourself as the king of your own life, the emperor of your own life, where you feel like you are, in a sense, a bit of a maverick, or it's like you are not beholden to groups or agencies or organizations, where you can stand up for the truth. So that if you feel that the truth is corrupted, which can happen often with different groups, that you can feel like you have the means to stand up as a whistleblower and speak the truth, regardless, no matter how corrupt the highest officials are in the land, no matter how ideologically driven these institutions become, whether they are in the realm of academia. And by the way, that's another great point. I highly recommend in academia, like Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson also has been interviewed by Patrick Bet-David. In fact, hold on a second here. So Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson had an amazing interview with the North Korean refugee. And her name is Naomi Park, right? So I highly recommend the Naomi Park interview, because what's very fascinating about this interview right here, Tyranny, Slavery, and Columbia, you interview with Naomi Park and Jordan Peterson, is she actually attended Columbia University in America. And what I found very interesting is she was comparing Columbia University with North Korea in terms of how she felt like propaganda was being shoved down her throat, and how she was told to basically to have a victimhood mindset. And if somebody opens the door for you, it's not because they're trying to be kind to you, it's because that's their way of oppressing you as a woman. It's like a professor was trying to teach her that. And so we have to be very vigilant about ideological propaganda being taught in the universities. And one way to combat this is right now on social media. At least right now we still have the capability to listen to alternative voices that are still free from this ideological agenda that right now threatens personal sovereignty. And this will conclude. I'm sure there's other names that I'm probably forgetting to mention. I mean, I just gave you just a small sampling, but it's a way to a good beginning. And they've interviewed lots of other people too. And you can find some other great voices. As far as other voices out there that are actually enlightened, I'm not at liberty to say right now. I'm not here to badmouth supposed gurus or praise other gurus. I want to keep nonpartisan on that front. But otherwise, this is Amabola signing off, and until next time, everybody have a great 2023. Bye-bye.